Good morning. My name is Nathan Hochman. I'm the District Attorney of Los Angeles County. With me and speaking today will be Los Angeles City Attorney Hydee Feldstein Soto, Los Angeles City Council President Marqueece Harris-Dawson, Chief of Los Angeles Police Jim McDonald, Pastor DeAndre Lee Sr., Faithway Baptist Church and community member. We're actually in the parking lot of the Faithway Baptist Church, and thank you very much, Pastor, for making this possible. And from the Forgotten Children organization, its president and CEO, Tara Hilliard. Also, among the people here at the podium are Assistant District Attorney Gilbert Wright, Sex Crimes Head Deputy District Attorney Guillermo Santiso. We also have Khalil Rashid, Deputy City Attorney for the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office. So again, thank you very much for being at this very important press conference that is shining again another spotlight on one of the scourges in Los Angeles County and this city, that being human sex trafficking. Essentially, sex trafficking or human trafficking is modern day slavery. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we are literally sitting at one of the epicenters for sex trafficking in the United States. In order to go after these sex traffickers, there's actually a three-pronged approach, an innovative three-pronged approach that we intend to bring this year and in the years forward. Part of the approach up until now has been to go after the sex traffickers and pimps, and we have done so. In fact, we've doubled the number of convictions in 2025 against the sex traffickers and pimps. And the reason it is so important to go after them as a starting point is you have to understand what's involved with sex trafficking. Often it's young girls and young boys. They can be runaways. They can be individuals that have aged out of the foster child system. They can be people who have been enticed to come here through the internet with promises of fame and glory, only to get here and they meet with the sex trafficker and the pimp. And what that individual does is absolutely tragic, sick, pathetic, and disgusting. That trafficker and pimp will literally strip all the independence from these young girls and young boys. He will make them dependent on him, and it's often him, for their livelihood, for their food, their shelter, their clothing. He will remove their ID. They are effectively slaves to these traffickers and pimps. And what they have to do to please their master is to go ahead and engage in sex acts repeatedly, over and over and over and over again, day in and day out. And it happens right where we are standing, on the corners behind me. It is happening in 5 major corridors in this county. The Figueroa Corridor where we're at, the Holt Corridor in Pomona, Western Avenue Corridor in Koreatown. It is happening in the Sepulveda Corridor as well. And again, we are having these, and then the last of the 5th is the Long Beach Corridor. And how sad that I can actually identify corridors where these sex traffickers have set up business. And though we have engaged in prosecution, and I must thank the Los Angeles Police Department's South Bureau Human Trafficking Task Force for its work to try and make a huge difference here, it keeps going. So we will be going after these sex traffickers. Recently in 2025, we brought cases that resulted in very significant sentences against for instance, Marquez Jones. He was sentenced to 12 years in state prison after a jury convicted him of trafficking a 15-year-old girl on the Figueroa Corridor. Kadar Edmonds was sentenced to 18 years and 4 months in state prison for trafficking 2 minors and pimping an adult in multiple areas throughout Los Angeles County. So we've been able to register significant sentences to these traffickers and pimps that let them know and send, if you can't hear this, traffickers and pimps, let me make it loud, clear, and crystally unequivocal that we will go after you, we will arrest you, we will prosecute you, and we will put you in state prison for as long as possible. But that is only one prong of a three-pronged problem. You have the sex trafficker pimp. You have the sex exploiter buyer. They've also been known as the Johns. And then you have the sex workers. Those are often those young girls and young boys. So I've described what we're going to do to go after the sex trafficker pimps. But they are the supply side in some ways, working with the sex workers. But what about the demand side? All too often, prosecutions have not focused on the demand side of this problem. And I'm telling you, and this is again a huge warning shot, we're going after the Johns. In fact, I'm not going to dignify them with the word John. I'm just going to call them sex exploiter buyers. These are the individuals, and they're often men, who come down these corridors looking to buy sex from these young women who are effectively enslaved by their pimps to go ahead and provide it. And we're going to go after them, and we have started that. And yes, the city attorney's office has brought misdemeanor prosecutions and will continue to do so. And you'll hear from City Attorney Hydee Feldstein Soto the tremendous efforts that the city attorney's office has done in this regard. But we're going to amp it up. We're going to go after these Johns for felony prosecutions. Yeah, felony prosecutions, conspiracy to commit a whole variety of crimes that now create a felony type of consequence to their actions. And along those lines, what we're also going to do with the sex workers is we are going to go ahead and give them that opportunity in these prosecutions to seek the counseling that they actually deserve. And we're going to hopefully encourage them and bring in the community organizations to reach the sex workers, to break the ties, literally these ties between the sex worker and the sex trafficker, by having these community organizations that specialize in working with these young girls and young boys to come in and give them the counseling to get them on a different track. Now, along the lines of what we want to do, there's the law enforcement component. That'll be the district attorney's office, the city attorney's office. We're actually also working with the U.S. Attorney's Office. We will be working with law enforcement from the LAPD to any other law enforcement agencies and their federal equivalents. But there's one more group we're going to enlist in trying to go after this sex trafficking problem, and that's actually the community. And one of the ways we're going to do that is a slightly innovative approach. Because right now the penalties, particularly for the Johns, these sex exploiters, buyers, they're weak. Yes, I can go after them for felony prosecutions, but the state legislature has not shown up in actually going ahead and emphasizing the gravity of this problem. Let me give you one example. Right now, if you engage in human trafficking of a minor, that is considered a violent and serious offense and a felony. But if you engage in human trafficking of someone who's not a minor, 18 or older, right now the state legislature has told those human traffickers the following: that is not a violent or serious crime. Can you imagine that? Our state legislature has actually listed human trafficking of someone who's not a minor as a non-serious, non-violent crime. That is absolutely inexcusable. They need to fix that immediately. But we're going to help them and try to figure out the penalties that sex exploiters and buyers, those Johns, should face. And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to put out a survey. And in that survey, we are going to list 7 options for people in the community through social media to weigh in on and tell us which or of these options, or maybe all of these options, we should go to the state legislature to try and increase the penalties to deter these sex exploiters and buyers from engaging in this practice. And by that, let me emphasize that word again. I don't want to just punish the people. I want to deter them from committing these crimes in the first place. So let me give you the options that will be out on social media that anyone here who's actually filming this or hearing this can go on our social media and click to give us your opinion on what the penalty should be. Option 1 will be a felony charge, which is upgrading solicitation of prostitution, which is what these sex buyers are doing, from a misdemeanor to a felony, and make it punishable by up to 5 years in prison or a fine up to $50,000. Option 2, create a sex buyer offender registry. Sort of like we have these registries for other sex offenders, create a specific one for sex buyers. So if you get convicted of this charge, one of the penalties will be that you can go on a website, click on that website, and see who the sex buyers are who've been convicted of these charges. A third option, vehicle seizure. We want to actually have the state legislature authorize the impoundment or forfeiture of vehicles used in the solicitation of prostitution, because that's basically how it happens. You can basically see on certain times of day on this exact corridor, the cars lining up, loitering, waiting for the women or young girls or young boys to come up to them, and then engaging in those sex acts. Option number 4, you'll love this one. Holding sex buyers civilly liable by allowing the sex worker survivors to sue the sex buyers and directing the criminal fines to survivor services. Option 5, if you have a professional license, that license would be suspended upon being convicted of these crimes. Option 6, sending formal warning letters to the houses of these individuals. You'll hear that the city attorney's office has often done that in many situations. We want to formalize that process through a state law. And also option 7, having mandatory evaluations. In other words, courts would have to require psychological and sexual compulsivity assessments for anyone convicted of being a sex buyer. So this is the multi-pronged approach we want to bring to dealing with what I will call an absolute crisis, a crisis that is going on in our county. And I am incredibly thankful for the support and partnership that other law enforcement agencies and prosecuting agencies have shown in combating this problem. Towards that end, I'd like to now introduce our Los Angeles City Attorney, Hydee Feldstein Soto.
Thank you, and thank you very much for that. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I am so pleased to be here and so grateful to have a district attorney who stands, as our mayor would say, locking arms with law enforcement agencies, with politicians, and with service providers. This kind of initiative really only can work with the sort of leadership and consequences that DA Hochman brings to the table. I also want to thank Chief McDonnell and his entire team, especially the South Bureau and the 77th Street Station, because we've been at this work and the Human Trafficking Task Force for a couple of years. And thank you, Chief, for your support. It brings a lot to the table. A lot of this started for me with our Council President Marqueece Harris-Dawson. I took office, and then Council Member Harris-Dawson said to me, I want to take you on a ride-along. And the ride-along down the Figueroa Corridor certainly opened my eyes as someone who'd lived in Los Angeles since 1982, cocooned on the West Side. There were things in open air that I had not seen, and I was particularly stricken by something called the kiddie stroll, K-I-D-D-I-E. And my focus was on the children, on the minors, on the little girls largely, a couple of little boys who were being trafficked by adults for sex up and down the corridor. Ranging from children who had been taken away from their biological families to runaways, to children kidnapped out of group homes or otherwise vulnerable to being exploited in that fashion. So on this month, because January is the National Human Trafficking Month, and the connections for this year, the theme for this year, are stronger connections, stronger futures. And yes, we need to put traffickers behind bars where they don't see the light of day. And yes, we need consequences for Johns. What did you call them? Buyers and sexploitators. But I stood in front of the former, the former U.S. attorney and the former district attorney to try to put this kind of a coalition together. It did take DA Hochman's leadership to lift it to the next level. But I said that we had 4 objectives, not just 3. Objective number 1 was to put the predators in jail. That should be a felony. That should fall to the DA or the U.S. attorney. Objective number 2 was to start disrupting the demand. Because if we don't disrupt the demand, if there continue to be people who with impunity in broad daylight can buy the sexual services of our children without consequences for them, we're never going to be able to stop the practice. So yes, shifting the focus from incarcerating the workers or the exploited individuals to having consequences, whatever those consequences may be, up to and including incarceration for the buyers of the sexual services. 3 is rescuing the victims. I do view children being sold for sex as victims. These are not people who deserve to be treated strictly on a criminal justice perspective. They're often in situations where they have no options and no choice, subjected to violence, subjected to abuse. And so having organizations, not only Forgotten Children, but so many of the others we've worked with, whether it be Journey Out or Sister Friends, to provide a landing ramp for some of these young children. And then to have, and I call upon our community, the same way we have risen to reintegrate formerly incarcerated individuals into our workforce, I urge employers, I urge our community, I urge our labor unions to step up and form apprenticeship programs and training programs and start to reintegrate these young people and provide them with a path to hope. And the last place that we do need to focus on, that my office has focused on, is the places, the landlords, the slumlords, the owners of property who make it available for this kind of sexploitation, the places that are magnets for illegal conduct and illegal activity. I will differ a little bit from our district attorney. I would not call it slavery, because at the end of the day, slavery was government sanctioned. It was the government who said it's okay to do this. That's not what we have here, thankfully. That's the ray of light that permits law enforcement to step in and do something. This isn't the law that is basically exploiting these young women. It is human beings, and it is human beings who deserve to pay consequences. We pioneered a number of techniques in my office, which I'm very proud of, because when the former DA's office wouldn't prosecute a number of these cases, we charged as many times as we could. We asked for the maximum sentence for each charge, and then we would stack the charges and ask the court to run the sentences consecutively. So even though I'm only responsible for the prosecution of misdemeanors committed by adults within the city of LA, we have put child sex abusers behind bars for up to 11 years. Misdemeanor is only 1 year, and we take these crimes incredibly seriously. It is said that failure is an orphan, success has many fathers. I think it isn't just that success has many fathers. I think that it is only by coming together, it is only with the jurisdiction of the district attorney's office that goes to Long Beach, where I can't go, that goes to Pomona, where I can't go, that really treats these crimes with felony, that we will finally make a real lasting dent in the open air exploitation of our young people. I thank you all for being here and for giving this issue your attention, and I join our district attorney and our chief of police and our council president in urging our community to come forward and help us do this work. Let's keep the young people safe. Let's shut down the places where trafficking occurs. Let's put Johns behind bars, if that's what it takes to give them the seriousness of the consequences, and let's put the predators away for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our city attorney, Hydee Feldstein Soto. I'd now like to call another elected leader to speak, who has demonstrated a commitment, not just over months, but over years, to ending human trafficking. our Los Angeles City Council President, Marqueece Harris-Dawson.
Thank you so much to all of our law enforcement leaders that are with us and community leaders, faith leaders that are with us today. I can always be counted on and always appreciate the opportunity to stand and look this problem, which has been along this corridor my entire life. And I'm not young, I'll just put it that way. This problem has been there my entire life. And one thing we wanted to do as an elected official was confront it directly, and try to do so in an effective way. And when we got on the phone and started calling people and saying, you need to see what's happening on Figueroa, what's happening to the parishioners who come to church, the people who live here, the small businesses, but most importantly, the victims of sex trafficking, we think you'll join up and want to do something about it. And I couldn't be more grateful to anyone more than I am our city attorney, who when we took the city attorney on the ride along, she expressed the shock, she expressed the anger, and the disgust about what was happening to our people here on Figueroa in our city, in the city of Los Angeles, and got busy right away. And literally every time I spoke to her after that, it was something about Figueroa, and she pulled together a task force which included all of the law enforcement agencies that you see with us today, and got busy. When our district attorney was elected, our very first conversation, I think we said, hello, nice to meet you. By the way, Figueroa. And he said, yes, Hydee already talked to me about it. So we're on top of it. And they put extra octane into the gas tank in dealing with this problem. And our chief of police and LAPD has had fits and starts with Figueroa for decades and decades and decades. But at a time when resources are getting tighter and tighter for the police department, I'm extremely grateful to the department that they've continued to prioritize Figueroa and dealing with this issue. And there is progress being made. The folks who live here and go to church here and do business here, they can tell you it's not perfect, it's not what it should be, but it's a little bit better than it was the week before and a lot better than it was the year before. With the help of the city attorney's office and the police department, we've closed 6 of the motels that were the most notorious for trafficking. We've installed cameras, and folks who know me know I'm not a big fan of government surveillance, but if you're going to get out of your bed and get in your car and drive to Figueroa to buy sex with a minor, then we're going to surveil you and we're going to hold you accountable. So if you look up there to the north, to my left, you'll see a little camera on the top of the light pole. We're keeping track of who's coming, when you're coming, when you pull over and when you stop, and you'll get everybody a Dear John letter from now the district attorney and the city attorney saying, hey, you were in an area where trafficking is going on, and here's a picture of your car and your driver's license number, and we just hope that the trafficker isn't the only person in the house that sees that letter, is all I'm going to say about that. And so we're excited about the progress that we're making. We think much more needs to be done. I am here to fully endorse and ask everybody we know, we'll go door to door if we have to, Mr. District Attorney, to make sure people respond to the survey. I can tell you the response of the council member is yes to all options 1 through 7, but we want to encourage people to get involved, because Sacramento has people from all over the state who don't have any idea what's happening here on Figueroa or in Long Beach or in Pomona. And so hearing from our people is going to be important to them and important to this process. So I thank you for getting behind this and reaching out to our folks and giving everyday people an opportunity to get involved, make their community better, but most importantly, do everything they can to protect our young people from this terrible scourge. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Council President Marqueece Harris-Dawson. Now I have the opportunity to present our Los Angeles Police Department Chief, Jim McDonnell.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you very much, and we very much appreciate you being here and giving this the exposure it deserves. Human trafficking along the Figueroa Corridor is not only a serious threat to public safety, but as you've heard over and over, exploits human beings from the youngest ages It is horrific, and I can't describe that in the detail that would do it justice here. The individuals who traffic victims prey on the most vulnerable people, harm families, and undermine the safety of our neighborhoods. Today, let me affirm our clear commitment to everyone. The LAPD will protect the victims, will hold the traffickers accountable, and will restore dignity and safety along this corridor. Our efforts are coordinated, comprehensive, and focused on helping the victims, ensuring they receive the needed care and resources that they deserve. To the traffickers and those engaged in exploitation, as you've heard over and over again, make no mistake, we are targeting you, we are coming after you. Through the Operation South Bureau Human Trafficking Task Force, we've built a united front against those horrific crimes while collectively helping those who are most in need. Members of the task force include the Southeast and 77th Vice Units, working in close partnership with the District Attorney's Office, the City Attorney's Office, Council District 8, our federal law enforcement partners, the Department of Children and Family Services, and trusted non-governmental organization who offer trauma-informed outreach and resources to victims. Our task force conducts long-term, coordinated, and intelligence-driven investigations to dismantle trafficking networks that are operating along the Figueroa Corridor. Our goal is clear: to disrupt trafficking networks, reduce demand, connect victims with services, and enhance public safety. This collaborative approach strengthens prosecutions, supports survivors, and makes the Figueroa Corridor safer for everyone. This partnership has delivered the following results. In 2025, our joint operations rescued 122 victims, including 95 juveniles and 27 adults, connecting them to critical services, which remains our highest priority. We made a total of 576 prostitution-related arrests, with 53 for human trafficking and 44 for pimping and pandering, ensuring those who profit from exploitation face meaningful consequences. Of the total arrests, 174 were considered buyers, as you heard also referred to as Johns, and we issued 504 deterrence letters, or as you heard, John letters. These arrests and letters send a clear message to buyers and facilitators that exploitation will not be tolerated in this community. Moving forward and beginning this year, we're using Assembly Bill 379, which strengthens our street-level enforcement efforts. This is a new law. We had a law previously that allowed us to do many of these things, and that was put to the side for a period of time. Thankfully, that tool has been restored. It allows us to arrest Johns for loitering with intent to purchase commercial sex. By targeting the market demand, we'll send a clear warning that if you come to the Figueroa Corridor to purchase sex, you will be arrested and your actions will be made public. Beyond street-level arrests, we're working with the District Attorney's Office to build conspiracy cases to dismantle the organizational structures behind these crimes. Our efforts are further strengthened through an ongoing partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office. The value of this coordinated approach was underscored this past summer with the federal prosecution of 11 Hoover gang members involved in a sex trafficking ring. Working with the City Attorney's Abatement Unit, we'll target motels, smoke shops, and lingerie shops that facilitate a profit from illicit activity and hold them accountable. In closing, to human traffickers who profit from exploitations, we will find you and hold you accountable to the fullest extent of the law. To survivors, we see you, we're listening, and we will stand beside you on the path to safety and recovery. To our community, thank you for your vigilance. Please continue to report any and all concerns to our officers and partners. Your engagement helps us protect lives and prevent further harm. I want to thank our partners here with me today. Together we're sending a clear message. Human trafficking has no place in Los Angeles. We'll keep you, the public, informed about our progress and next steps. Rest assured the LAPD is committed to the future of the Figueroa Corridor, and as always, we'll answer the call to keep all Angelenos safe. Thank you again for your continued coverage of this very important topic. We appreciate the partnership with the media as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief McDonald. I'd now like to call up Pastor DeAndre Lee Sr., who's the pastor for the Faithway Baptist Church, whose parking lot we are having this press conference on.
Thank you. Good morning. As a member of the community and one who has an invested interest in the Figueroa Corridor, I first want to acknowledge the hard and often unseen work that's being done by our district attorney's office and our city officials and our police department. Safer streets don't happen by accident. They come from commitment, coordination, and courage. As a parent, it's heartbreaking to have to explain to my son as I'm taking him to school why it is that we have women on the street that aren't dressed. And it's heartbreaking to see and understand that these women are not here often by choice, but most situations are they're being forced. And so as a parent, it's deeply heartbreaking. As a person in this community, on behalf of the community, we are just overwhelmed with the amount of crime, the continued abuse that we're witnessing in this community. As a pastor, it's very difficult to see and hear women being abused openly and publicly. And I'm just thankful that something is now being done. We're not standing by and just witnessing this, and there's been no change. But I thank God for, again, the moves that are being made on behalf of the victims, on behalf of the community. And we stand together courageously in a coordinated way to see this change brought about. I personally, as a pastor, and as, again, an invested person who has an interest in the development and the ongoing building of this corridor, I'm looking forward to the Figueroa Corridor being fixed in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor. And our final speaker is the CEO and President of Forgotten Children, Tara Hilliard.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tara Hilliard, President and CEO of Forgotten Children, Inc. We're located in the city of Long Beach. But I stand here not as a president or CEO, but as a native of this community. More than 50 plus years ago, I lived along the Figueroa Corridor, and my mother actually walked these streets. And so when I found out about the harsh reality of human trafficking in our community, and I remember what my mother went through as a young prostitute that had a pimp, and nobody knew that it was called human trafficking at the time. And so as a child, I watched my mom experience the violence that many women experience today. And so I've decided that I would not just run an organization just to run an organization, but we're bringing change and hope to the many women that you see along the streets. We have a drop-in center and a resource center in the city of Linwood where they can come in and receive trauma-informed care and resources and support. We have a team that go into the Linwood County Jail for Women every single Tuesday, and we work with women that have a history of trafficking and prostitution and may not even realize or recognize that they have been trafficked or experienced the trauma. We are not just talking about it. It is an honor to partner with the district attorney's office, with the city attorney's office, and with so many of you. Forgotten Children is just not one organization, but we are many represented here today. We're not just talking about incarcerating these women. We're talking about helping them to get on their feet, help them to reclaim their lives, bring freedom back to them. I heard someone say it's about slavery. And in our minds, it is about slavery. When you don't have the freedom to do what God has called you to do, and someone is forcing you to sell your body where they get the money that you cannot keep and then experience the violence at their hands when you don't make your daily quota, that is slavery. And so for me as an organization and personally, my goal is to help young women find their hope and their freedom. And so today, as we stand here, January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and it is an honor to know that there's so many people doing something about a problem that the community is tired of. And so today I stand representing so many agencies and partners that couldn't be here today. Churches, thank you, Pastor. Churches are getting involved, and we're saying no more violence for women. But not only that, we're making sure that they receive the care, the love, and support that they need. We're not treating them as if they have committed a crime, but we're treating them like women that have a future and a hope. So thank you today. Thank you for allowing me to be here today to represent the voices that you will never hear. And thank you for helping me to stand here in honor of my mother, who now is deceased, but she would be happy to know that somebody is fighting for the women like her. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your powerful words, Ms. Hilliard. You know, while this month, January, is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month, I'm here to tell the sex traffickers and the pimps and those sex exploiters and buyers and Johns that every month in Los Angeles County is Human Trafficking Prevention Month, and if necessary, Human Trafficking Prosecution Month. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you being here to hopefully put that spotlight on an incredibly important issue in this county. Thank you again.